Welcome back to the Brain First Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Devine. If you've been listening to this podcast, to this YouTube channel, then you know that we talk a lot about what our brains do for us pretty much every single moment of every single day, and how this is connected to every single behavior that we carry out throughout our day. And then we connect this to what this means for you as someone who supports a child, a teen, a young adult who lives with a brain-based difference. So you've also heard me talk about very specific cognitive skills on this podcast. So we covered processing pace in episode 24. We covered cognitive rigidity, or the inability to be cognitively flexible, in episode 3. And the reason for this, the reason we get really specific and learn about the different domains or categories of cognitive skills is because it's one thing to understand the theory behind this parenting approach, this brain behavior connection that we're always talking about. It's a whole other thing to put this knowledge into practice every day as you support your complex child who lives with a brain that works really differently. What every single parent and professional that I've worked with has realized, and myself included, is that we make incorrect assumptions about these cognitive skills. We assume that they're fully in place for our kids. We do this without any awareness, without even thinking about it, especially if we're what society considers neurotypical. Our brain works reliably, it works consistently, it works as society expects it to. Then we really don't give it much thought at all. So it's important that we raise our awareness, right? Raise our awareness about these specific cognitive skill sets, get really crystal clear on where the struggle is, where that rub is for our kids, so that we know where to accommodate them. We're no longer throwing spaghetti at the wall. We know exactly where they're experiencing a poor fit and having a hard time. It just helps explain so much about why they're getting tripped up in their day and why they're having these really big, challenging behaviors, meltdowns, however you want to describe it, that seem to come out of nowhere. Okay, so with all of that being said, I thought we might spend today's episode talking about a category of cognitive skills, a cognitive skill domain set that is a frequent point of challenge for our kids who live with brains that work differently. It's one that gets easily missed, easily misinterpreted through that behavioral lens. And so I want to make sure that we are clear about it so that we can do exactly what I just mentioned, raise our awareness about cognitive skills and what's getting in our child's way. So this cognitive skill set is attention and working memory. I want to talk about what exactly it is and then what behaviors reflect difficulty with this skill set, with attention and working memory, so that you can be on the lookout for it, see it for what it is, and then accommodate your child in the way that you now know they need. Okay? So attention and working memory. It is the ability to selectively process information. So this is the attention piece. And then also retain the information in an accessible state. This is the working memory piece. So I think we'd all agree that this is pretty important, right? For all of us, it's a necessary skill that we all need in place to make it through our day without problems, okay? So I want to give you some examples. I'll give you 7 of them. 7 examples of what lagging attention and working memory skills looks like behaviorally. And as I do this, I want to encourage you to just ask yourself, is this something I've observed with my own child? And if the answer is yes, well, that's really great information for you to have about your child, because then you have another point of reference. Why are things so tricky for them? Why am I seeing this challenging behavior? Okay, they're lagging behind in this skill. This expectation, this environment, this task expects that skill to be in place. They don't have it, no wonder. They're frustrated, chronically frustrated, anxiety, overwhelmed, whatever it might be. it gives you a lot of information about why they're not doing well. Okay, so here are 7 common behaviors that point to lagging attention and working memory skills in our kiddos. Number 1, your child says one thing, and then the very next moment they go and they do something completely different. Completely different than what you had discussed with them. This particular behavior can be very confusing, and it can be completely maddening as a parent because you were clear on what was agreed to and discussed, and they said they were clear, and then they walked away and they did something completely different. It looks and it feels so defiant. But I want you to know, I want you to hear me when I tell you it is directly tied to the ability, or in this case, the inability, to attend to what you are saying and hold it in mind for an extended period of time. And yes, I am talking about a minute later, being that extended period of time for some of these kids. It can really leave their brain that quickly. The second common behavior that reflects lagging attention and working memory skills is inconsistent performance, or having on and off days. I covered this particular lagging skill in episode 5. It is so fundamental to our understanding of kids who live with neurobehavioral challenges. So if you haven't listened to episode 5 yet, I would encourage you to do that after you're done listening to the rest of this episode. All right, number 3, the need to be taught the same thing many, many, many times. I'm talking about reteaching tasks that you thought may take a few weeks, maybe at the most a few months for your child to learn, for them to be able to get down, do independently, pick up on their own. And here you are 2 years later, right? Reteaching them that same routine, the rules, the expectations over and over and over again. One of the accommodations that I talk to parents a lot about when we're looking at this particular behavior and this particular need for their child is the accommodation is accepting their need to be retaught a bazillion more times than you imagined, right? Easier said than done, but that is the accommodation, right? Needing to reteach them the same thing over and over and over again. Okay. This next example, number 4, is why many parents I have supported over the years, I see them waste enormous amounts of energy trying to find the consequence, the threat that will actually change their child's behavior. And there's little to no success when they do this. It is because lagging and attention and working memory skills often means that a child or a teen has difficulty learning from past experiences, or predicting outcomes, or seeing what's coming next, or all 3. I mean, it makes complete sense if we go back to the definition of attention and working memory skills, the ability to selectively process information and to retain information where it can be accessed again when it's needed. Right? No wonder consequences don't work, right? So if you have ever found yourself saying to your child or your teen, what in the world were you thinking? Like, why did you think that was going to work out for you? We've talked about this. I can't believe that you thought that was going to go well for you. They likely have difficulty with this particular cognitive skill set. Okay, number 5. Difficulty with attention and working memory skills can mean a poor sense of time and time management. So you'll hear it described as overly attentive to the now and under attentive to the future. Okay, so things like not having any clue how long something will take, or having no ability to conceptualize what 5 minutes is versus 20 minutes. This is a perfect example of when a very good parenting technique, like in more traditional parenting, does not work for your child. And why? Why doesn't it work? We're told as parents that we should give our kids warnings for transitions. Great. Really, really wonderful advice. For example, something like, hey, you have 10 more minutes. Okay, you come back again. Now you have 5 more minutes. You come back again. Okay, now you have 1 more minute. So you're giving this countdown. And then you wonder why your child erupts when that 1 minute has passed and it's time for them to transition on to whatever they've been asked to do next. And they say, you didn't tell them, right? You didn't tell me. They act as though you just sprung this on them, which is so confusing and so exhausting. As a parent, it doesn't make any sense to us when we see that behavior. But if they can't conceptualize time, this parenting strategy of counting down really doesn't help them prepare for that transition. It feels to them like whiplash, like it came out of nowhere. It's also why, for example, 1 hour of screen time can feel like 5 minutes to them. They are adamant that they did not get the time that you promised them. Differences in time perception. It reflects a difference in your child's brain and how they experience time. Okay, two more behaviors that help you to know whether or not your child struggles with attention and working memory, cognitive skills, again, with the hopes that it helps you reflect on whether or not this might be true for your child, whether or not this might be an area of struggle for them, so you can support them then in those areas. Number 6, difficulty maintaining focus and or persistence with a task that requires sustained attention, especially when it's challenging or tedious. Sometimes you'll hear this talked about as a reflection of executive functioning skills. I'm not here to argue whether it's one or the other. I don't actually think that's very important. However it makes sense to you, great. What is most important is that we understand that difficulty mustering the mental energy to persist with tasks that require sustained attention, especially when they're challenging or tedious, that is 100% a brain thing. This is one that can so easily get viewed through a behavioral lens that your child just doesn't care, that they are lazy. So I really want to make sure you hear me say that it is absolutely 100% a brain thing. It doesn't mean that your child then never has to do anything that's challenging or tedious, that they never have to do anything that requires sustained attention. What it means is that when that comes up, and that's something that has to happen for whatever reason, that you have an understanding of just how distressing and difficult that's going to be for them, and you up the support. You provide them with the level of accommodations that they need and require to do the thing, to get through that task, that expectation, whatever it might be. All right, the last one, number 7, the inability to reflect on multiple thoughts or ideas at the same time. And related to this, the inability to brainstorm or consider a range of solutions to a problem. This is attention and working memory. I remember watching my daughter, who's now 16, she's a teenager, when she was younger and she'd play with her stuffed animals, she could not brainstorm imaginary ideas or storylines. It was very hard for her to come up with those ideas on her own. She needed a lot of support. And once we were able to accommodate her and help her imagine or brainstorm a storyline, then she was on her way and she could keep with it. But she couldn't do that initial step. I also hear from a lot of parents about this becoming more evident when their child becomes a teenager, where at that chronological age, they are expected to do more complex reflection on thoughts or ideas or problem solving, whether that's in school assignments or just life situations. It's something that's expected at their chronological age. We make the assumption that they can do this, and they may not have the skills to do that yet. It's also why collaborative problem solving may be a really hard process for your child to participate in. There are lots of cognitive skills involved in the collaborative problem solving process. This is just one of them that comes to mind, but it can get in their way, and it can look like, oh, they just don't want to do this. They don't care. They don't want to participate, right? When actually it is, I can see that this lagging skill is getting in their way of fully participating. They can't brainstorm solutions. They can't consider a range of options to the problem that we're trying to solve, that sort of thing. So I still encourage you to invite them into the process, because all of our kids, of course, they want to be heard. They want to feel like they have a place, a voice, but just set your expectations accordingly. Put your expectations in alignment with what you know about these lagging cognitive skills. Okay. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope it gave you some more insight into your child, into this particular skill set, how it might relate to your child, how it might be connected. It is the root cause of their challenging behaviors. One suggestion I have for you, especially if you're new to all this, is to re-listen to this episode and do it at a time where you can make note of which of these 7 behaviors really stand out to you as you think about your child. And then from there, where does it come up in their day? What situations, specific situations, do you now connect it to where it's coming up in their day, getting in their way? It's probably way more than you realize. And then from there, how can you proactively start to put in supports and accommodations for those specific situations to support them in these particular skills that you now recognize they have a lot of challenges with? Okay. As we've talked about many, many, many times, the goal for you, for your child, my goal, my hope for you, is that they experience less challenging behavioral symptoms. This path that we've talked about, understanding the root cause, their lagging skills, that is the path towards fewer challenging behavioral symptoms. Okay. Thanks as always for listening in. I appreciate you being here. And until next time, take care.